I'm Nicole Anderson, and welcome to our Equity Roundtable discussion. I am joined by Marcy O. Brown, Dr. Eric Witherspoon, and Tovey Scruggs. And today we're going to talk about closing educational gaps. So the question for today, how do you support educational leaders in closing the various gaps in schools, and in particular, include strategies and best practices that you recommend for these educational leaders?
I think that educators require a support to really enable them to see themselves. And so what we've done is we provided a mirror so that educators can truly see how they look, they can see the extent of the leadership that they're providing, and whether or not they're making good on the promise. Students who don't have a culturally proficient learning environment experience cognitive deprivation. And students of poverty, in addition to the stress that they experience from being a student of poverty, experience toxic stress as it relates to being in an environment that is not culturally proficient. And so we help educators see those intrinsic evidences of a lack of a culturally proficient lens, instructional environment as it relates to the classroom, and even also policies at the district level, all aspects of the student's learning environment. We help through conversation, through discourse, through workshops, through equity institutes, through coaching, through opportunities that allow for amplification of the student's day-to-day experience. The better we can allow educators to truly see what our students are experiencing, the better we can improve those environments and really take the journey towards being culturally proficient, keeping in mind that this is a day-to-day journey, and it is also a day-to-day commitment.
Well, I know for the partners approach, we really value the instructional literacy piece and the instructional pedagogy piece that goes with using an equity lens. Because a lot of times the entry point for discussions around equity is around the academic achievement gap. So that's where we really take a focus on by using our school transformation rubric and our district transformation rubric, which really serves as a self-assessment and a coaching stance assessment of where a school and a district is in their transformational journey around both equity and instruction. We really have a strong approach with ELs and with families and students of color. What's really important too, in terms of what you were saying as well, is that inside-out component. And that's an area that we look at really strongly through our equity workshops and through our leadership coaching, because when we're building adult capacity, we have to look at ourselves as leaders and as teachers and what is happening inside of us that are yielding the outcomes that we're facing in our classrooms. And so we really help our schools as partners shoulder to shoulder with their goals that they're focusing on, especially in terms of LCAP and other areas that they need to look at to get better results.
I think that's a great point, Tovey, because oftentimes there's a quick kind of gravitation to let's fix the students, or I need you to come in and fix these kids. But the inside-out approach is pivotal because that's the true essence of transformational leadership. When we can begin to do the work inwardly, and then we can serve better because of that work that we've committed to. So that's an excellent point.
It starts with us with building good relationships. Relationships are key. As consultants, we work with schools, educational leaders in specific, toward establishing good and positive relationships, helping them understand that we're there to support them, to give them all that we have, the expertise, sharing that information with them, helping them to better understand the need for them to have a good relationship with their students. We focus in particular, give a keen attention to students of color, because we know quite often they are the ones at the bottom of the achievement gap. And so it's significant for us to help them to understand that they not only need to have a relationship with us as we come in as their coaches, but also to have a very good and positive relationship with the students of color and also with their families. We work with leaders offering professional development activities, helping them change their mindsets and thus ultimately changing their skill sets. You can't change your skill set until you have the right mindset, and that's the premise under which we operate. It is very important that our students have people working with them that believe in them, understand them, and realize that they can do. So cultural proficiency is important relative to those who work with our children. So that's important to us. We use various strategies, but the ultimate goal for us is for schools that we work with to come up to establish action plans, equity action plans, where they based on data that we've collected at the schools. The data comes from both quantitative and qualitative sources. So once we put the data together, we help them to analyze that data and then put it in the form of a plan. And from there, we help them execute that plan. It is very important that they work from a plan rather than off the cuff. So that's important to us.
I think it's really incumbent upon providers of this work to hold others accountable.
Yes.
And so I like your point, because that's part of the work that we all do. Yes. We provide the content, the knowledge, and the information, but then we have an accountability system as well. Right. And so similar to what you described, we have a logic model that we use as a capstone that really holds all of our participants accountable as to completing the plans and the work with the new knowledge that has been acquired, so that ultimately our students are impacted by a transformational leadership and a mindset of high expectations and a mindset of tenacity in building opportunities to learn.
And what we have found in also keeping in line with having the action plan and the logic model is that oftentimes there's not enough reference to the data in a consistent way. Yes. So that's one of the strategies that we've been using, is that we use what we call the ROCE cycle, results-oriented cycle of inquiry, where we're consistently taking grade level teams and site level leadership and district leaders through their data. Generally about every 2 weeks, we're having conversations, because the data should be guiding the work plan and guiding the action plan. And oftentimes schools are not reviewing data, but sometimes twice a year, like a mid-year piece, and then at the end, and by that time it's been too late to really course correct. So that's something that we do regularly, and I'm really proud that that's something we do internally. We do it first so that we can course correct in our coaching and our support of who we're helping. So the results-oriented cycle of inquiry is huge.
Quantitative and qualitative data, very important as you work with sites or with the client. So when we talk about quantitative data, we're talking about not just we talk about interviews. There are other places to collect this data. One thing that we do is called the Voices of Alumni. And that project is used to collect quantitative data from alumni from that district. In particular, we've focused on African Americans who were students in that district, and to try to help them understand how do your former students feel about your district? What experiences did they have? So basically, that is another way for the client to collect data. So we're constantly collecting data, and I thank you for sharing that, Tovi. It is important, the continuous collection of data.
It definitely is important to illuminate a path that shows others that this work can be done, and to show others the methodology and how it can be completed. Sometimes those nuances come about as to how can we do this? It's too difficult, it's daunting, but we've created a community of practice network so that we can have others share best practices, effective solutions, and testimonials so that we have a large basis of success stories that others can reference, and it's motivational and it's inspirational to know that there really is a community of practice developed that's dedicated to this work.
Thank you again for joining me today and sharing your insight about closing gaps for educational equity. And thank you for watching. For more information about ACSA's Equity Project, as well as equity videos, please visit us at acsa.org.